Okay, we gotta get this. And here we are. What's going on, y'all? It is AVIOT Sunday Brew doing a late episode today. It's been quite a busy day. Been trying out a new recipe, and the recipe was okay. Next time, I'm gonna add more salt to it. It was a Greek dish, but I'm glad I'm trying out new things. It's good to experiment. Anyways, hope everyone else out there is doing fine. There's been a lot in the news. I actually wasn't able to record a podcast episode, the second podcast episode this past week. So I'm actually going to use some notes from that episode that I had written up and I'm going to use it right here. What I wanted to discuss there because hey, how you doing? What I wanted to discuss on that last podcast episode, especially in the wake of a lot of these firearm incidents happening around the country, there was an incident in which a firearm was used by an individual at a school in Colorado, a high school, Evergreen High School, some weeks ago. And I feel that a lot of the narratives that are being spun in the media right now, we're missing the point of keeping kids safe, keeping our children safe, students safe in classrooms and schools. So I wanted to revisit that incident and speak on the two students who were harmed there. So the person who used the firearm to harm the individuals, they took their own life. However, there were two students that were in critical condition and they were taken to the hospital. Basically, there was one student that was taken to the hospital and they were released. They were in critical condition or they were severely injured and they were released from the hospital. CBS News, they actually ran a story on another student by the name of Matthew Silverstone. And that student remains in critical condition. So I like the fact that they ran this story. They humanized Matthew because a lot of times when we hear about people being harmed in these firearm incidents, we don't think about, well, what happens to them after the fact, right? It's just, oh, these students were injured by this firearm, and then we move on. And I think it's good to really speak to the stories of the individual. So Matthew, I found from this CBS news story, was actually adopted at about 6 months old. He is one of three children in a single family who were all adopted. Yeah, I'm not talking about that, Jeffrey. You can go back to a podcast episode that I did back in the. It was a couple. Let me see. I think it was podcast episode 81. Yeah. So if you go back to the AVI podcast on streaming services, you can see podcast episode 81. I speak about that there. LeBron. What's up with LeBron? Why are you putting LeBron in the chat? Did something happen with LeBron? But yeah, Jeffrey. So I spoke about it on that podcast episode, so you can see that there with that individual. But anyway, so going back to what I was talking about, the situation that happened at Evergreen High School in Colorado, Matthew Silverstone, he is out. And how you doing, Diane? How you doing? So Matthew Silverstone is not out, still in critical condition in the hospital. And this story by CBS News really gave more to his backstory, saying how he was adopted. He's one of three children that is adopted in a single family. And Matthew was adopted because he was in an abusive situation. Okay, Jade, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so I thought it was good to speak on Matthew Silverstone, and I hope that Matthew heals and is healthy and does well after this horrible incident that happened in Evergreen. Thank you very much, Zenoya. That's how you pronounce your name, Zenoya. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you. I don't know what person K1 is talking about. So more on the person that actually used the firearm at Evergreen High School. This person was radicalized by some extreme networks, repeatedly radicalized by because they used to watch a lot of extremist content, and that goes along the narrative. And I think that people are moving past that narrative. That a lot of people who are very conservative, very right wing, oftentimes they end up committing these firearm tragedies or firearm instances because I don't know what it is. I haven't looked too much into it, but we see a pattern. I remember there was a incident that happened at a supermarket in Buffalo, and I remember that person was radicalized and they harmed a whole bunch of black people. Took the lives of a bunch of black people. I know people remember Dylan Roof and how he walked into that church and took the lives of all those black people in that church. Right? We're seeing a pattern. these individuals tend to be very right wing, very conservative, and have very extremist views. Okay. Okay, I'm just looking at the comments right now to see what's going on. So that's what the situation in Evergreen High School, that was that situation too. So more into it, the suspect that harmed the individuals with the firearm at Evergreen High School roamed around from locker to locker. They were using the firearm, shooting at lockers, shooting at windows, and the school had an active shooter drill. And because they had an active shooter drill, they're able to save a whole bunch of kids. And it's sad that schools have to be in that predicament to have active shooter drills in order to protect kids from any potential dangers or any potential threats. How you doing, Brian? How you doing? So, but it's good that Evergreen had this drill so that these kids were able to be taken care of. But like I said, two people were harmed at Evergreen High School. One is out of the hospital, the other one is still in critical condition. And we're happy that both of them are alive. And we hope that both of them are on the right track. Psychiatric technician, hi, how you doing? Yeah, so there's that. Now, another situation, another tragedy that happened. I don't know if you all are aware, there's a black man by the name of Trey Reed who lost his life at a school, Delta State University, a school in Mississippi. And so at this school, they found him hanging from a tree. And I just want to let y'all know black people do not hang themselves from trees. Okay? When black people take their lives, they don't do that. So that whole situation is very suspicious. So the last I've read about it, a legal representative for Reed's family said that the media knew of Reed's passing before his actual family did. That's terrible. Why wasn't his family notified before the media told them? It's like the Kobe Bryant situation. I remember Kobe Bryant's wife found out about him and his daughter passing on a helicopter after the media had released the stories to everybody. So that's a similar situation that happened with Trey Reed's family. So the family is seeking an independent autopsy. I read up more on this whole autopsy situation. I believe Colin Kaepernick, through his organization, is paying for the independent autopsy of Trey Reed because initially they were saying there was no foul play involved in him passing away. And so I think no, that's very fishy. Just you see a black boy that's hanging from a tree and his life is gone, and you say, oh, immediately they say, oh, well, we suspect there's no foul play. I don't think that's the right course of action. So the family also doesn't know what exactly happened, and the family was initially informed that Trey Reed was found passed away in his dorm room in his bed. So this was told to them by the Grenada County Sheriff's Department, Grenada County Sheriff's Department, and this is a place in Mississippi. Hey, Zenoya, how you doing? So I just hope that Trey Reed, that whole situation, that it truly, that justice is truly served. However, he lost his life. I hope the truth comes out. If there is, how you doing, yo, yo, sweetness? I tell you, y'all with these names, man. Y'all with these names, really. Dan Unrow, what do you mean I'm attributing it to race solely? What am I attributing to race? Can you please explain? I'm talking about the Trey Reed situation and how he was found he was found unalive in a tree, hanging from a tree. And all I was saying is that black people don't hang themselves from trees, right? That is a practice that dates back years, and you had a lot of black people that lost their lives due to bigoted people doing that. But I'm not assuming anything. All I'm saying is, why was Trey Reed found not alive, hanging from a tree? And one of the first things that the sheriff's department said was, we suspect there may be no foul play involved. I think that's very fishy. Oh my goodness. I tell you, some of y'all in this comment section, y'all really be interesting. Can we please say comments that contribute to the conversation? I'm really trying to talk about important topics here. No, Jeremy, no, no, no. We're not going there. Oh my goodness. Some of y'all, man. So all I'm saying is justice for Trey Reed. I hope that his family finds peace and that this independent autopsy provides results that we need. Really? Y'all is something else. Anyway, so moving on to another topic. So speaking of justice, there's been a lot of people that have been talking about Jimmy Kimmel and this situation that's happened with him and his show. Now, he made some comments regarding the passing of the founder of Turning Point USA, as well as the president of the United States. And I guess people didn't like that are affiliated with the current presidential administration of the United States. And so they put pressure on the studios, the networks that are in charge of Jimmy Kimmel's show or that air his show, and now he's been pulled off the air indefinitely. There's been some rumors or reported news going around saying that Jimmy Kimmel is going to have to apologize to the family of the founder of Turning Point USA and that he might have to give money to the Turning Point USA in order to get his show back on air. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel is going to do that. I know they're in negotiations to see what's happening, but I know that ABC, I think they're trying to do mergers. You got Nexstar, they're trying to do mergers with other media companies. Really? Oh my goodness. The N word means nonviolence. Okay, Akash, the N word means nonviolence. That's what it means. Okay. So basically, there's this whole scramble with the Jimmy Kimmel thing because at the end of the day, I think a lot of it comes down to money. So you have the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, and Brendan Carr is pretty much put pressure on the networks that air Jimmy Kimmel's show, saying that if you don't pull him from television, then we're not going to allow you to be able to absorb other networks, other television companies. And so it's a lot of it has to do with a money thing. Trying to coerce someone into apologizing for telling the truth is wild. Yeah, I agree. LL, is that your name? Yeah, I agree. I thought the whole conversation behind Jimmy Kimmel is very disturbing. And so I have mixed feelings. I haven't put out a reel on this or a social media post on this yet because I still wanted to get my thoughts together. You have a lot of people saying that this is going against our First Amendment rights. And if they could do it to Jimmy Kimmel, they can do it to everybody else, right? Here's the thing though, as a black individual, what I will tell you is a lot of times when I'm making social media content, I do have to censor my words already because even if I'm speaking the truth, my videos will be taken down. I never forget. I made a series of videos on the Jeffrey Dahmer biopic on Netflix. It was called Jeffrey Dahmer, a Monster, something like that. Monster Jeffrey Dahmer, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. And I remember I was just talking about the victims of the real Jeffrey Dahmer. And that video was flagged and subsequently taken down off of TikTok. And they said I violated a community guidance. I violated one of the community guidelines. And I tried to argue my case, but they still kept the video down. So, in a sense, I was already being censored. So, when people are saying, well, they're going to take away our First Amendment rights, in a lot of situations, our First Amendment rights are already taken away as it is. I think this is just a power move right here. And what I don't like is you have a lot of people that are focusing on the Jimmy Kimmel situation, but they're not focusing on the over, what was it, thousands of black women that lost their jobs. They're not focused on a lot of the other situations that are happening in the United States. I know there are people that are focusing on the ICE raids, right, and how immigrants are being unfairly treated. However, I think that, hey Diane, how you doing? I think that ultimately there is selective outrage. And I think in order to truly change, you really got to force people's hands when it comes to money. We have to stop doing things or stop associating with certain people. I don't know why you're putting a Bible verse, your local monster drinker, but okay. But with the Jimmy Kimmel thing, I still am getting my thoughts together. What I will say is he should be able to speak his mind, right? He should be able to say how he feels about the current presidential administration within reason, right? Like he shouldn't threaten anybody's life, and he didn't do that. All he did was give a perspective, tell some jokes, and that's it. Shaking my head. So that's the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. Sorry, y'all on the stream that are watching me. I'm pausing because I'm trying to read the comments, and we got a lot of trolls in the comments. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So with the Jimmy Kimmel situation, I'm gonna still formulate my thoughts. I wish we could have more of a conversation in the comment section about that. LL did a made a good comment. I wish that we could talk more about the Jimmy Kimmel thing, but a lot of y'all more so feel like trolling. So speaking of entertainment, I did have you're not well, Jeremy. No one told the untruth about the founder of Turning Point USA. No one told the untruth there. No, he didn't. No, he did not. No, he did not. Kimmel did not. I have to push back against that. No, 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 no. He did not. In fact, I think there was another article that came out that said the people at Disney or ABC didn't think what Kimmel said was wrong, but it was more so the pressure that was being put on them by Brendan Carr and the FCC that made them feel like they had to take down his show. So that was that whole situation. But moving on, I want to go to entertainment. Over this weekend, I listened to this new album by the hip hop star named Cardi B called Am I the Drama? And when I tell you, y'all, I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't know what to expect. But that's how I felt with Cardi B's first album. So her first album was called Invasion of Privacy, I believe. And okay, Jeremy, whatever you want to say. I know I'm not wrong. I know I'm right, but I'm moving on. So in Cardi B's first album, I remember listening to that, and I didn't know what to expect because I know Cardi B is a personality, and a lot of people are attracted to her personality because she's funny and she's very raw and authentic. It appears, and so with Invasion of Privacy, her first album, I remember listening to that, and I was pleasantly surprised. I said, "Wow, Cardi B is constructing this album very well. She's talking about different topics, and she knows how to carry a song, right?" And that was the same thing with this album. With this album, Am I the Drama? I believe that Cardi B did a good job of constructing her story. At first, addressing some people that she has issues with, then going into talking about the father of her children, her ex-husband, well, her soon-to-be ex-husband, Offset, one of the members of the former group, the Migos, and then she closed by just talking about who she is like as a person and how she's moving on in life and how she wants to be taken seriously as a hip hop artist or a rapper. Okay, we got a lot of trolls up in here, but I thought that Cardi B did a very good job of constructing her music, and it's funny because I was telling my wife, I said Cardi B's not the greatest lyricist, right? But she knows how to put emphasis on words. She knows how to make her music catchy. She and even with her enunciation sometimes in her words is not the greatest, but I feel her passion in the music. All right, LL, now Jeremy, you're literally making up your own facts and then trying to gaslight us into not. Yeah, yeah, exactly, L. Yeah, exactly, exactly. I totally agree. I totally agree. Jeremy is just going on and on and on and flooding the chat. But it is what it is. Just to let y'all know in the comment section, when y'all put rude or inappropriate things, the chat automatically blocks it. I have censored words and phrases already. So whatever y'all trying to do, I don't see it. So, so I'm just letting you know that right now. But with going back to the Cardi B album, I thought she did a good job. And to be honest, you have people out there that are really taking rapping seriously, and Cardi B actually did a better job than a lot of people who are better lyricists because she knows how to construct an album. She has a good team that she's working with. Let's see. You look like a man who would teach his kids math and science to progress the world in the most selfless way possible. I mean, listen, I think that's why what we all should be doing, right? We should all be trying to have positive change in the world and try to progress it in a good way. I believe, yeah, that's good. That's good. If you believe in Jesus Christ, let's not divide over politics, race, or anything that will lead to harsh communications. Ah, my goodness. Yeah, I believe the Messiah did exist. I do believe that. However, I do believe that a lot of people, they'll scream Jesus Christ and they'll do the exact opposite of what the historical figure actually taught and did in the book. So, why are incels generalized? Aren't some people? I think, okay, so Daniel, going to, I'm breaking from my main script. I was talking about Cardi B, but I'm addressing some comments right here. When the with incels, I do believe a lot of them are generalized, but a lot of it comes down to people not knowing who incels are, like what they're all about. Like a lot of people are just now finding out about the goipers, right? So the groipers, yeah, groipers. So a lot of people are just not privy to that information. Jeremy, no, 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 no. A leftist or a Democrat or a liberal person is not responsible for the situation that happened with the founder of Turning Point USA. No, 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 no. That is false. That's false information. That's been proven to be false. People have looked into this guy's background and they've seen that he is very right leaning. His family is right leaning. He dressed up as the president reportedly for Halloween, one Halloween. So yeah. Okay, LL. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was actually speaking, I was talking to my wife about incel culture, and she was saying, well, aren't people who exhibit toxic masculinity, don't they have a little bit of incel in them? So I was saying how incels kind of fall within the spectrum of toxic masculinity. They're not necessarily that, but they fall within that spectrum. So there is that. But anyways, to conclude, going back to my main point, talking about Cardi B's album, yeah, it was pretty good. I Pretty and Petty. That's my joint. That's the diss track that you made towards the hip hop artist Bia. That's my joint right there. But yeah, it's a pretty good album. Definitely encourage y'all to listen to it if you get a chance. Outside of that, what I will say, last bit of entertainment news. So the WNBA playoffs were today, the semifinal round. The Aces got upset by the Indiana Fever. That was pretty interesting. Okay. Um, yeah, so I was reading a comment. And I was I was shocked, but not surprised. No, that's contradicting. I was shocked that the Aces lost. However, when I look at how a lot of their players played defense, I shouldn't have been surprised because Aces earlier in the season, they struggled with their defense. And they've had pockets where their defense hasn't been working well. Minnesota, they handled business and beat the Phoenix Mercury, which is what I thought they should have done, being the number one overall seed, and they pride themselves in defense. Now, in the beginning, it was a little shaky, but I had a feeling that Minnesota was going to make a run toward the end of the game and end up winning. So that's what happened there. Anyways, all right, y'all. I think I'm gonna end the podcast right here. I want to get some things together before I go to bed. But thank y'all. I said podcast, live stream, live stream. But thank y'all for tuning in. Even the trolls, y'all keep it going. Never been a fan of Cardi, but if you're saying there's a change to the flow on my, yeah, LL, I think you should. I think you should check it out. I think you should check out the album. It's pretty good to me. Like I said, pleasant surprise. And this is someone who listened to the Clips album. I listened to Kendrick's album. I listened to Tyler Creator. So you have great bodies of work that I've listened to. But I will say Cardi definitely carried her own. I didn't get tired of it. Though it's 23 tracks, I do believe that WAP and Up didn't need to be on the album. She could have ended with her last song on there. I don't think that WAP and Up needed to be on there, but I think that was a business move because they're trying to drive sales up. So I think that's what that was all about. But anyways, so I'm closing, and we always close the live stream by talking about what's brewing for this week. What's brewing for me is just to keep creating content. I gotta batch create and get ahead because I know I have a trip coming up soon, so I'm not gonna be able to create like I want to. But I thank y'all for listening, and I'll see y'all next Sunday. All right, peace.